Welcome to DC and RC. First of all, we still want to just send love to my boy Daniel Cormier and his family. We've talked a few times the last week. DC is pushing through. His kids miss grandma. Obviously, he misses his mother as well. DC is being a soldier. DC is being the leader of that family, just the same way he's been the leader in everything else in his life, from wrestling to the UFC now, and also being an analyst. We send our love to him. We miss you, man. Can't wait for you to get back, but take all the time you need. So since we don't have DC, they said, you know what, Ryan, we cannot make you come up and do this show all by yourself. Like, you got to have somebody to do the show with. Nobody wants to listen to you just talk UFC and mixed martial arts by yourself. So I was like, well, shoot, who can we get? And I got a picture in my inbox yesterday, and it was one Chuck Liddell, the Hall of Famer, the Iceman, hit you from any angle you want him to hit you from. Just a true pro. And honestly, the dude that made me love mixed martial arts, the dude that made me fall in love with the UFC. I mean, I was watching it on Spike. So I just want to say thank you, Chuck, man, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, so I got to tell this story, Chuck. It was, I want to say 2015. I'm sitting at Houston's with my wife, and Jamie Foxx walks in. And, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's probably the coolest person I'm going to meet the whole day. Like, I just met Jamie Foxx, and he knew who I was, and it was dope. And so then Chuck Liddell walks in. Immediately, the hairs on my neck stand up because I'm nervous now, because I'm like, man, if Chuck just swings his hand walking, I'm going to sleep. And like any other fan, I run up to Chuck and I'm like, hey, bro, my favorite knockout was when you would fight Tito and this and this. And he goes, and I was like, man, you was throwing punches from every angle. It was so many punches at one time. And then Chuck goes, well, I wasn't hitting him. I wasn't trying to knock him out with every punch. So he's in front of me. Chuck's in front of me, showing me. He's going, see, like these, that one, I wasn't trying to knock him out. Then I was like, pow. And his hand and your hand, Chuck, is right here in front of my face. And I'm thinking to myself, is Chuck Liddell finna knock me out in front of my wife? You know what I mean? And to my wife, I'm a football player. Like, I'm a tough guy. And here I am going to be laid out in the parking lot of Houston's and then going to wake up and not going to do anything about it. And so, like, it was cool, man, to meet your favorite fighter, the dude that got you in. Not so cool to have him demonstrate how he knocked out one of his most bitter rivals. But I think that's why it's awesome to have you here. You've been in fights like what Colby and Jorge Masvidal were in this week. Talk about some of the rivalries, man, that you had on your way to the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man. Me and Tito, we didn't get along at all. Yeah, it was I don't know their Colby and Masvidal, what exactly beefs are, but I know they don't like each other very much. For me, it really the best part about it for getting ready for a fight is it helps me get motivated for a fight. Like, I didn't have to wake up and get motivated to train for him. I was easy to get up and get ready every day to train for Tito, because I didn't want to give him an inch anywhere. And but it was he's one of those fights where, for me though, once the fight starts, I'm a real calculated fighter. So I try not to use emotion in my fight. So I'm not sure. I don't know how much emotion played in it for both those guys when they're fighting. I'm more of a technical fighter when I fight. I try to leave emotion out of it, because I think emotion clouds judgment. You get mad, you get angry, you really want to, you make some mistakes. Now in that fight, I think I was surprised Jorge didn't jump on top of him more when he had him hurt. I mean, Colby finally started backing up and was moving back, and he started coming at him and pushing him. I mean, if he kept, he got dropped. I mean, it was ready. I mean, he was there. It was there for the taking at that point. But Colby did a good job of staying away and keep getting his wits back about him, and then coming in and not letting him capitalize on that catch.
Yeah, so Chuck, when you go back to that fight, you can see that the wrestling played a huge part in Colby Covington beating Jorge Masvidal by decision. You fought Randy Couture. You guys had a great trilogy. When you think back to fighting Randy, how were you able to try to neutralize some of his wrestling because you knew you had the advantage in the stand-up?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of movement. I just not letting them get set and moving side to side. But it's also I had a good wrestling background. I was never. I mean, I was a Division I wrestler. I wasn't a great wrestler. I mean, I wrestled at the same time Randy did. I think he took second at nationals. I probably had a 50-50 record. Never got pinned. I wasn't getting tech. I wasn't getting scored on a lot. So I was a good scrambler. And I mean, I learned how to use the cage real well, but how to keep moving and staying off on the side. I mean, Jorge did some good stuff, but he was worn down. I mean, I think it was the pace of Colby. And, I think, because I think he just didn't have enough left in the gas tank when he had him hurt. It seemed like he didn't jump on him enough for me. I saw you see someone you hurt him like that, you got to finish him. That's your shot. He's hurt and he was back. And you just start backing up because that's your shot. Like a lot of times when you get someone rocked, I know if I got you rocked, I got you backing up. I know. I got to get you on him because I know I got to hit him hard. If I catch him more time, it's over.
Yeah, but like you look at when Jorge finally caught him in the fourth round, you could see the fatigue. His mind didn't click in to let me go finish this fight. He allowed Colby to get his wits back about himself and eventually ends up losing. When you think about
that point right before that, I said, I don't even know. I don't know if you can even hurt him if you catch him. And because I thought because Jorge looked tired. I thought maybe even if he catch him, it's not going to, he caught him.
You're right.
He still got the power. There it is. Let's go. Get going. But I thought Colby did a great job of recovering.
Yeah, and that's always the thing, I love to watch, when you guys fight is it's not always how many punches or how hard you can throw punches. It's just like how hard of a punch can you take? And we saw Colby recover. He kept the pace up. He kept the pressure on. He continued to wrestle. When looking back on your career, when you think about fights that you love, the fights that always pop up in your mind where you feel like you were the best Chuck Liddell, what would those fights be?
Oh man, I look back. My Randy fight. If I had to pick one, like my Randy fights, the second and third fight, like that. I saw what the mistakes I made in the first fight. I was able to. Looking at films for that fight. After I lost that fight, I didn't look at films for. I don't look at films until I was going to fight him again. Usually, I watch right after I get home and kind of trying to figure out what I need to do better. You win, lose, I'd still try to go and look through them, but I couldn't bring myself to watch that one. Not because I lost to Randy. I was so upset that I let Tito off the hook. Like he fight me now after all this trap. And the reason Tito used to dodge me all the time was because when we trained together, I used to beat him up. Like he didn't beat me in a straight wrestling match when we were training together. That's the thing. That's what scared him was like he couldn't beat me in a straight wrestling match. He couldn't stay if he started on top of me. He couldn't stay on top of me. Mm-hmm. And then when we're striking, I drop him the body a lot, and he wasn't able to do anything to me standing up. So he's thinking in his head, well, I can't take him down when he's punching me, and even if I do, I can't keep him down. What am I gonna do? It's like so. It was. Training for. He just didn't want to fight me, but that was the biggest thing. I didn't want to let Randy. I thought I let him off the hook, so I didn't want. I didn't watch the fight. When I watched the fight, I figured out a few things I could do a little better. And guys, I got this. We're gonna do this. Mm. And so I have to look back. And that's one of the things coming back from that loss. And it was the first time Randy been knocked out, and he fought some great strikers, and knocking him out. And then coming back, probably if I have to go again, the second one, just because proving it wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
Or the third fight, the second knockout, proving that wasn't a fluke.
Man, I think that's the great thing about rivalries. The great things about having animosity when you talk about guys like Tito. But when you have those feuds and there's so much build up to the fight, and you mentioned earlier that Jorge was fatigued. How much does that fatigue play a part in the way that you attack the fighter, and what does it change about you, especially a guy that's a striker?
Well, the fatigue with strikers, especially if you get tired, a lot of times they just don't have enough. I see everyone's like, man, if you just land one punch, but they haven't got anything left in their punches.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. I wanted to be like for my strength and conditioning. The goal was to be in good enough shape to be able to knock someone out with 30 seconds left in the fifth round.
Okay.
You know, I want to be able to have you beat me because if you beat me for 4 straight rounds and then 4.5 minutes of the fifth round and I knock you out, all anyone's going to remember is I knocked you out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
4 rounds, 4.5. All they remember is, oh, he knocked him out. You know, so but that's a hard thing to do. Because having that explosive power over time is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard conditioning thing, and I believe emotion and getting overly hyped and overly angry or whatever does drain that energy.
Did you ever have that though in fights where you got late into the fight and you felt like and you were sort of fatigued and maybe saving things in the gas tank? Were you ever in the fight where you could have caught a guy or you thought you had an opportunity, but fatigue didn't allow you to? Have you dealt with that before?
I don't know that I noticed that was it. Because if I hurt somebody, I think for me, like if I see that in your eyes, my conditioning thing goes away. Like it's like
right,
like
almost a killer instinct. Yeah,
that switch. Like, oh, he's hurt. Go. You know, there's that extra take. Oh, he's almost out. I can finish it. You know, and that's one of those things. Like you can read that in someone. You're like, oh, okay, he's tired. He's tired, or he's hurt. Now you have to get your energy. Because I think being tired a lot of times is more mental than it is physical.
We keep talking about your career. I'm asking these questions because you're a freaking Hall of Famer. Khabib Nurmagomedov was selected to be in the UFC Hall of Fame this weekend. And looking back over his career, what are some of the things that stand out about Khabib? Because he was one of those guys that was here for a good time, not a long time, but did so much in his career so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he's just consistent, man. That guy, even after that jumping out over the ring, I thought that was, I was not happy with him jumping over the ring and going after it. I think he should have waited until he was in the back room and done it. But I'm not
the back room where nobody breaks it up.
I wasn't against him doing it. I think he should have waited until he got in the back room so no one broke it up. Or sort of, and it didn't affect a bunch of fans, a bunch of people out in the thing. But it is what it is. And I think his post-fight speech actually saved him for me. Yeah, my dad's gonna kick my ass when I get home. I'm like, all right, I like him.
Right.
Yeah, how do you not like the guy? He's great. He's a great fighter, man.
Yeah, when I looking back at his career and kind of his ascension and watching him, be a wrestler and also evolve to be a good enough striker where it was entertaining. He drops Conor in their match and eventually, takes him down, gets his back, chokes him out. I think Khabib was the fighter now that's ushered in, and obviously wrestling's always been the premier skill. You yourself, was a D1 wrestler. Wrestling's always been the premier skill in the UFC, but now because of the Khabib and now you have Chimaev and Makhachev, a lot of these other people following suit, I don't know if we'll ever see someone who is able to use that skill to be as dominant as him. And he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. What was that moment like for you when you were notified that you'd be in the UFC Hall of Fame or when you were inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame?
It's a strange, like for me, it's always been a strange kind of like honor, like, because I'm always like, I love fighting. I love what I did. And I'm glad people appreciate it. And I'm glad people, I get award, I guess looking back, it's nice to have that, but I mean, that's something for fans and other people to say how good you were. I mean, I did it because I loved it. I had fun.
Looking at the fighters of today, obviously you get to go to a ton of UFC events. I hope Dana doesn't make you pay, man, because you're in the Hall of Fame. Who are some of the fighters that you like to watch? Who are some of the fighters that you like to watch in today's game?
I still fight as low as Teixeira. We got to remember training partner, and he helped me through my career, helped me improve my career. You know, he's a great guy, and he's a great guy. He's one of the best guys out there. I mean, I like watching Izzy fight. You know, I don't know that I liked him until I actually hung out with him for a few days. But I really like the kid. You know, he's a good guy.
He does some things that kind of reminds me of you sometimes. You know, some of the awkward angles of the punches, the very precise striking, and so I could definitely see that.
A very creative striker. That's fun. That's always fun to watch. Man, there's a lot of good guys out now. I mean, there's a lot of good fights.
The thing that I always wonder about you guys is when you are a fighter. Like I know for me playing football, when I'm looking at, you know, safeties I like or football players I like, they kind of have things that I had. You know, they're extremely physical, or they're really smart, or they're guys, you know, who aren't scared to mix it up. When you're looking,
my thing has always been guys that are the guys that want to try to finish fights.
Yeah,
and I'm a fan of all elements of MMA. So like, if you're a great jiu-jitsu guy and you're going for submissions and you're actually actively trying to submit a guy, I can watch you guys roll. I can watch them you'd be on top of them going after them the whole time. Where you're grounded, actually down there, the wrestler just trying to get them down and pound them. You're trying to get them, trying to hurt them. Obviously, strikers, I like them. They go out. But then again, if you're going to stand up guy, I don't want you just scoring a few points and then running around. I want a guy trying to work. Take your time, whatever you want to do, as long as you're working towards a finish, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like guys that like to fight. Like, and I'm like I said, I'm a fan of jiu-jitsu, I'm a fan of wrestling, I'm a fan of striking. So it's just guys are out there trying to finish, not guys who are trying to just score enough points to win. Now, I'm not. I guess as a manager, as a coach, I'm not. I mean, I remember telling guys, "Hey, look, do me a favor. When you take them down, score a few points before you go for that submission. Because if you miss it and you roll on bottom, now you're gonna lose the round. You know, like at that your head, you're being a coach trying to win, right? And like I love the guy that shoots right and goes for the submission and rolls through and then goes and tries another submission.
Yeah, I love those.
Goes out there trying to knock the guy. And I love the guy that was like, I can't think of his name, Michael Moore. Like the guy, he had so many straight fights and knockouts, right? Because he would go after, but it cost him. He was, when he fought Foreman, he got knocked out in the last round, right? So I think 10th round at least. The last round, but it was because he was still trying to get that knockout.
Still trying to get a knockout, right?
Right, instead of running around. And, but that made me a fan. That's how, I'm a fan of the guy just still trying to finish the fight. They probably should be running around, not getting hit and winning the fight. But they're still trying to finish it. That makes a fan out of me.
Well, listen, it was the way that you finished and always went for the finish that made me a fan of yours. Thank you so much, man, for just spending some time with us. I am super grateful. This is one of those great moments for me where I realize, I get to do this show, but I'm still just a fan of men who could do amazing things inside the octagon, bro. So to the Hall of Famer, bro, we just really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
I mean, it's crazy, man. Like, I got to pinch myself sometimes doing this job. We had Rashad Evans on last week. This week, I get to chop it up with Chuck Liddell, and my everyday co-host is Daniel Cormier. For a dude like me, this is just a dream come true. But since we don't have DC this week, we tweeted out, Ask RC. I don't know what type of questions you guys sent. So Corporate Jake is going to come on and he's going to read some of your questions to me, and I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability in my favorite RC way. And then I can't wait to see what you guys came up with. Corporate Jake, hit me.
First one comes from Bob. Ask RC, who should McGregor first fight when he returns?
Well, Conor McGregor keeps behaving like he's going to come back and get an opportunity to fight one of these guys that are fighting for the belt. He thinks he'll get Charles Oliveira. He thinks he'll get Justin Gaethje. Somebody I'd like to see him fight, obviously he has a fight upcoming, is Michael Chandler. I would love for Michael Chandler, especially if he beats Tony Ferguson, to get an opportunity to fight Conor McGregor. That's a fight we know that's going to be explosive. Michael Chandler had one of the fights of the year against Justin Gaethje in Madison Square Garden. And I think that's something Conor needs, is something that's exciting, something that's fun, with a guy that's beatable, that's not at the top of the sport, that's not a champion. Obviously, he fought Charles Oliveira and he beat him through the first round, gets knocked out in the second. He has the war with Justin Gaethje. He's a dude that's respected, a dude that the UFC has put a ton of promotions behind, obviously a ton of money behind, and it gives you the exciting fight that you need. Or to me, you come back and you go up to 170. You go up to 170 and you get an opportunity to fight a guy like a Colby Covington. Like, who wouldn't tune in for that pre-fight? Colby Covington is a dude that we know isn't going to get another shot at Kamaru Usman as long as he's the king. And so you set that fight up. That will be pay-per-view box office. It will be fun. Now, everyone will be scared that we'll see much of what we saw with Jorge Masvidal, who's a smaller 170-pounder. A lot of takedowns, a lot of wrestling, and kind of neutralize Conor's stand-up attack. But I still believe that would be a fight that people would be excited to see.
All right, next one for you. From the Happy Champ. Do you think the winner of Khamzat Chimaev and Gilbert Burns should be the number one contender for Kamaru's welterweight title?
Well, I think you can't just keep overlooking Leon Edwards. I mean, this dude has put his time in, and he's fought his way back from losing to Kamaru Usman years ago to put himself in this position. It's the reason he didn't take fights against Jorge Masvidal. It's the reason that he hasn't taken some of these lesser fights, because he realized he's put himself in position to fight the champ. And so I believe Leon Edwards is that guy. After Leon Edwards, I believe that Khamzat Chimaev, if he wins, should be the number one contender. I don't know if it means the same thing for Gilbert Burns, because we remember that Gilbert Burns was knocked out by Kamaru Usman after actually having a really good start against the champ. But I believe that everybody looks at Chimaev as the next thing. And I believe that's the reason he pushed so hard to get a guy like Gilbert Burns, a guy who is a championship contender, a guy who is a top 5 welterweight, because it gives him an opportunity to show that he can compete at that level. And I think everybody wants him to be there. Right? Dana White wants him to be there. The UFC wants him to be there. The UFC fans are behind this guy 100%. And we've seen Kamaru Usman run through this division already. And so if Chimaev wins, it gives you somebody exciting in there, gives you someone new in there. And whether or not he has the skill to take down the champ, we don't know. But we've seen the champ fight so many of these guys already that we're just getting repeats and recycles.
All right, one more for you, RC. This comes from Patrick Walsh. What are your top 5 most exciting fighters of all time?
I think number one for me will always be Anderson Silva. The way that he was able to strike, the way that he was able to defend without even looking at guys sometimes, with your hands down, in a sport where 1 second can change your entire life. Anderson Silva, to me, was just the most exciting guy doing it. And number 2, I think it's hard to talk about the fight game and not talk about John Jones. John Jones was exciting. John Jones was athletic. John Jones was explosive. And the thing that I always loved about him was he could beat people at their own game. And he's really robbed himself of that GOAT status with some of the things he's done away from the octagon. But the one thing we can't take from him is seeing that exciting young 20-year-old guy get into the fight game and totally turn it on his head while becoming a champion and reigning at that championship level for so long. Jose Aldo is another guy for me. I think right now we watch Jose as he's kind of rebuilding his career at a lower weight class, and we forget what he was. You know, we forget the explosion in his hands. We forget the violent nature of his leg kicks and kind of some of that like explosive right now, let's attack, let's end the fight, spectacular finishing power that he had, or finishing ability that he had. And you know, it's kind of sad that when guys fight a little past their prime, you know, you forget these things. I think another one for me is Max Holloway. When you watch Max Holloway fight, you know that every time he steps into the octagon, there's an opportunity for the strikes attempted and the strikes landed record to be broken. What he was able to do against Calvin Kattar, what we saw him do against Brian Ortega, his 2 fights with Volk. You know, I just think that when he steps into the octagon, we know what we're going to get. We know what we're going to see. And it's never a dull moment. And I think another one for me has to be Amanda Nunes. You know, the women's side of this sport is extremely new as compared to the men. But when Amanda Nunes went on her run, and whether it was Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, Cyborg, whenever she got in there, you knew what was happening. You knew that it was going to be fast, it was going to be quick, it was going to be powerful, and it was going to be dominant. And I was always excited to see that. So I'm very excited to see what happens when she gets another opportunity against Juliana Pena. Do we see the same lioness that we all fell in love with, or is that run of her being one of the more exciting or most exciting fighters we've ever seen over?
RC, are we going to have to bring Chuck Liddell back in here since he didn't make your top 5 list?
No, please listen. Please don't bring Chuck back. As I was going through it, Chuck kept popping up in my head, but I went with some other guys. And now, since you said that, I'm hoping that he doesn't watch this far into the show, especially after he gave me the Tito knockout special in front of Houston's.
That's fair. All right, so that's all the questions we got. How about we do some tap in, tap out?
Let's tap in, tap out, Jake, since you're my co-host today, brother.
All right, so this past Saturday, 272, Greg Hardy lost what was his last fight on his UFC contract. So, RC, tap in or tap out on Hardy being done in the UFC?
I tap in on him being done. He can go fight in another organization, but we've seen so many fighters start out with promise, obviously none having the name that Greg Hardy has. But when you look at his last 2 fights, he's basically fought around 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Both of those have been explosive TKO knockouts by punches. And when you are a guy fighting for your career, when you are a guy fighting for your contract, you can't let that be the last 2 things that the UFC has seen from you. I think having that crossover ability from football or having, that having played another sport before, I believe people are already skeptical about your commitment to the UFC, your commitment to MMA, and also your ability and talent to do that. And so when you get knocked out in explosive fashion, as he has in these last 2 fights, I believe it's done for Greg Hardy.
Next one. Kayla Harrison has officially re-signed with the PFL after testing for agency for a couple months. RC, tap in or tap out that PFL was the right choice in the end for Kayla?
I tap out for this reason. The UFC is the queen and the kingmaker. The UFC is the big pay-per-views. The UFC has the other, the other big names. And though Kayla Harrison has built herself up in PFL and, through her career even previously, it's not the same, right? People don't who are outsiders, right, or who are just fans of the sport, don't constantly tap in per se to watch PFL. They may tune in to see Kayla Harrison, but not necessarily be interested in the rest of the card. Whereas even on a night like this weekend where Jorge Masvidal is fighting, you have the RDAs, you have the Mitchells, you have all of these other names that you're tuning in that the UFC has made household names, even if they aren't champions. And I don't think PFL has that draw. I listened to something that she was saying recently, and she talked about where Ronda Rousey was, right, and who she became. And even now, the weight that her name carries that weight because of the UFC. Her name carries that weight because of the power of the promotion and the promotion they put behind the individual. And I just don't know if PFL will ever make her that household name. Will we love to see her dominance? Will we love to see her fights? Will we know every time it goes to the ground, you can cancel Christmas? Absolutely. But as far as mainstream goes, I feel like if you're not in the UFC, it's so much harder to become that household name.
All right, next one. So obviously last week with Moicano stepping in on late notice to RDA, Islam Makhachev put his name in the hat for that. However, Dana White said that Islam turned the fight down, and due to that, he has to now fight Dariush next when Dariush gets healthy, rather than being next in line for a title shot. So tap in or tap out, RC, on Islam versus Dariush happening rather than Islam being next for the Gaethje Oliveira winner.
I tap in. I tap in on that. Even entering the Beneil Dariush fight, which was canceled and he was replaced by Bobby Green, that fight was supposed to show us if Islam Makhachev was ready to fight the champion. That fight was supposed to show us that he could beat a top 5 guy. Up until now, the most impressive win is the quick finish of Dan Hooker, but even that was on short notice. And so Beneil Dariush was supposed to give us the deepest glimpse into what Islam Makhachev looked like when challenged by a top level fighter. And I think RDA would have done that as well. Now, I don't necessarily believe he should be punished for not taking the RDA fight, right? For fighting a guy, obviously after you have a full training camp, Bobby Green was basically practice as well. But I don't think he should be docked for not having that fight. But he needed that fight to prove that the champ was next. And so I think Dana White still feels that way, that you need that fight against Dariush to show the world, to show the UFC, to show the winner of Oliveira Gaethje that you are the next guy. And I believe that he'll understand that. He may not like it, because now it puts you in a situation where you have to win over an extremely tough opponent that is on a roll. But I think this is his way to earn that title shot. And if he beats Beneil Dariush, then it's not even a question.
All right, one more for you, RC. So next weekend is the NCAA Wrestling Championships. And our guy, DC, has been tapped to be on commentary. So tap in or tap out on DC being on commentary for the NCAA Wrestling Championships.
Listen, I 100% tap in with everything that he's done as an Olympian, as a college wrestler, and now in the pro fighting world, in mixed martial arts, and in the UFC, being double champion of the light heavyweights, champion of the heavyweights, which makes him the baddest man in the world. And then now the way that he's transitioned into the analyst world, DC is one of the best doing it. Not only is he informational, not only is he educational, but he's fun and he's entertaining. And not even because he's my dog, he's likable. And so to have a guy like Daniel Cormier announce or analyze or commentate, do color for the NCAAs is kind of like a no-brainer to me, Jake. It's well, who else would do it? And if you can get DC, why wouldn't you want him to do it? If you can get LeBron James to be a commentator in the NBA once he's done, or to do the NCAAs, you immediately jump on it. That's the level of athlete DC is in the wrestling world. That's the level of athlete he is in the world of mixed martial arts. And it's also how talented he is as an analyst. And so this makes me excited to watch, because I don't know what the hell is going on, but I know DC can explain it. And I know he can make me enjoy listening to him explain it, which honestly is the biggest part of our job. That's about it, guys. It's been fun. I enjoyed having Corporate Jake as a co-host for a little bit. I also enjoyed Chuck Liddell and listening to the Hall of Famer talk about his fighting career, but also the fighting career of Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov and some Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal. I wish you guys could have heard him once we got off the screen and had an opportunity to talk as well. I think, as we continue to do this show, I hope I continue to grow. But what these last 2 weeks have shown me is that we need Daniel Cormier. The NCAAs will be better for having him, but we were always better for having him. Can't wait for him to come back. We love you, DC. This is DC and RC, man. We'll see y'all next week.